Your narcissistic parent is never going to validate your side of the story because, as far as they're concerned, your opinion of events, first of all, does not matter. And second of all, none of it happened as far as they're concerned. Or if it did happen, it wasn't that bad. Or if it was that bad, it was actually not as bad as it was when they were children. So you got it easy. And yeah, they're never going to do it. But there's this drive in us as children of people who abused us emotionally that we want them to see and validate the harm they've done, because we are hoping for, first of all, an apology and a movement, an inner movement in them to be like, oh no, I did this to you, I'm so sorry. And then we can see that a monster that was so mean and bad actually has a heart, has grown a heart for us. And that makes us lovable, doesn't it? No. No. That's not what will make you lovable. Actually, nothing will make you lovable. You don't need anything to make you lovable, because you are lovable just because you are you. And being loved by someone committed to hating you since the day that they met you is quite an ambitious goal. And no wonder we pursue unavailable people for a lot of our lives after that, wanting to fulfill that fantasy of being chosen by someone who never chooses us. But one day we will do enough. One day we will be good enough. One day, something will happen, something. We've transferred the fantasy of wanting the abusive parent to soften up and see that we're hurting. So they see us. And then they love us enough that something clicks and changes, and they're like, oh no, I love them. Why am I abusing them? And then we live happily ever after in that little fantasy. And when that fantasy doesn't materialize with the parent, we try to recreate it with partners or with people that we choose. We go down the same rabbit hole. The people we choose are specifically chosen on the same basis. They cannot love us. Some people will say, no, actually, when we first met, they were very loving, and I couldn't have known. First of all, there's a lot of mannerisms that are happening with people. There's a lot of exchange of messages that we have with people through our neuroception, which is almost like our body's language of understanding certain cues that maybe we can't even consciously catch them. But there are cues to know what kind of type of people we're around. But even so, the thing is that when we're someone, let's say we are with someone that is horrible to us, no, that is great to us, loving, super great, and then they stop being so loving and great, we make it into our life's mission to take them back to where they used to be loving and great, rather than saying, you know what, it's over, let me move on and find somebody better or someone who treats me better. So there's always the element of what are we continuing to endure and choose, which is usually based on that inner experience of what love is, an endless pursuit, something we can never secure, something we have to work hard for, something we will continue to chase. So we find ourselves in these traps. We expect these people to one day see that we are good enough for them to love us, much like we want our parents to do that too. So we spend most of our lives doing the same thing over and over and over again, whilst unconsciously we're pursuing that fantasy that I explained in the beginning. And that fantasy, when put into the words of when we're doing healing work, is us coming back to the parents and saying, you know what, I learned in therapy that you were gaslighting me, that you were stonewalling me. I saw that you were whatever, doing this to me. I saw that you didn't appreciate me. I was told, I understood, I learned, and then we go to them with all these tools and all this new language, waiting for them to say, oh wow, that's amazing, you did that. Let's all talk about it. Let's sit at the table and talk about how I used to abuse you, but I don't abuse you anymore. Because now I'm a different person because you came here and gave me all these nice words you found out in therapy. never in the history of ever is this going to happen. First of all, if you come to them with an explanation or an accurate description of what happened to you, because you managed to, hopefully in therapy or somehow managed to find validating words that give name to that experience, and you took it to them, they will take it as an attack. And they will invalidate that so much, shame you for sharing it, and ridicule you for even still dealing with the past. You know, people who don't really want you to remember the past are usually the people who wished you would have forgotten what they've done to you so they can continue to do it. It's like, how dare you keep me accountable for what I did to you? It's over. It's in the past. It's in the past. Why are you still talking about your childhood? Therapy is not really helping you. All you do is deal with the child. Forget about your childhood. Oh, trust me, we're trying to forget about our childhood. But it is impossible to forget the amount of abuse that we're now just realizing. The true shocker is that we kind of knew we were being abused in the sense that we were suffering and struggling, but we had internalized that abuse and thought, so it's happening because of us. We're bad. We're not good enough. We weren't capable to see our parents as bad. And that is for different reasons, but the most important one is we need to stay attached to these people. We need to stay attached in order to survive. We can't realize that our only chance for survival, this person that will keep us alive, is dangerous because we have nowhere to go. And for a lot of us, the most dangerous person in our lives has been the one that we needed in order to survive. Like, talk about going back and forth in between deciding whether someone is safe for you or not, and at the same time you need them, which is a very confusing experience that results to us having such a strange experience when we're trying to go close to someone. We want to go close, but then we want to run away because you're like, this is not safe. But anyway, we have to stay attached. So for us to stay attached, we stay in denial. And for us to stay in that denial, we have to continue to deny within ourselves how badly we're feeling about what is happening. So we're disconnecting the memory from the experience. And so when we start struggling in life for random things, and then we go to therapy, and then we realize, oh no, it's because of that happened to me when I was 7. And like, I didn't realize it was so impactful. And now you're beginning to get in touch with how impactful it really was. What happened when you were 7? That Tuesday, a random Tuesday for your parent, but for you, a massive, catastrophic, emotionally catastrophic event. And now you're connecting to that. And now you're definitely remembering, you're shocked with what you're remembering. And it's just changing everything about what you know and think about everything, because you're in shock. So it's almost like you're rediscovering your childhood. You're truly remembering the childhood fully and accurately through the eyes of the child that you were. So you are validating your own story by going back and participating in those events and experiencing the pain, and then showing up as the adult in that room, helping your inner children get some healing and release. But taking anything from that, any information from that sensitive part of yours, and taking it to a parent committed to hurting you, breaking you down, humiliating you, showing you that they are more powerful, that you need them, thinking that they own you, and truly not appreciating not appreciating the value of life of a child, because narcissistic parents do not respect their children. They don't think children should be entitled to things. Whatever they're being given is like a favor from, a charity from the all nice and amazing parent that gives these things to you selflessly. No, they give it to you because they're your parents. They're supposed to. They're obligated, and you're entitled to it, because when you come into the world, you're entitled to care. Or else why would they bring you here? To torture you? So you take all of that sensitive stuff to them. What do you think they're going to do? And my most important question here is, what will change? Again, right? What's the fantasy? What is the fantasy? That they admit it and they say, oh no, I did hurt you so much. And then you're going to sit down and have dinner, and you're going to reminisce of how they tortured you. but now you all love each other and have dinner together because what's the fantasy? What's the fantasy? Within seeking validation from those that harmed you, that will never do it because they cannot acknowledge what they've done to you, because they're also in denial about what they've done to you. And they also don't think it's important, as I said in the beginning, because they don't think your feelings are important. If they thought your feelings were important, they would have valued them even when you were a little child and couldn't stand up for yourself, because they would just appreciate the value of who you are and take care of that. Not only because you're an adult and you can punish them or tell them something about it, but because they respected you as an individual. But most of them did not respect you throughout your childhood when you were weak and vulnerable. And now when you're an adult, they have an issue with you creating boundaries or going to therapy or talking about them or having an opinion of being ungrateful. And now something is wrong with you for living in the past. Not that something is wrong with them for messing up your past so much that you're still an adult who cannot get over what happened to them in their childhood by the people who were supposed to protect them. Make it make sense. No, really, make it make sense. So why are you not allowed to go through that past and have an opinion about the past and some feelings about that past when they were allowed to just do whatever they want and you were supposed to just forget about it? They were counting on the fact that you would forget about it. They didn't even care. They didn't think it mattered. They never thought, oh, I wonder when they grow old, will they think that I was a horrible parent and not want to be around me? They were like, I don't care. They owe me. That's why narcissistic parents will tend to always remind you of the things that they've done for you, which were, in fact, the bare minimum for most of you, or some massive like exhibitions of, generosity or giving you a lot of money or whatever, which is, again, it didn't matter. What would have really mattered is that they respected you enough so that when you grew up, you didn't have to suffer so much from having them as a parent. And many people will mock that, and when I talk about it, they're like, oh, why are you telling people to hate their parents? No, I'm just telling people to stop allowing people to abuse them just because they are their parents. I don't care who someone is. Nobody has permission to continue to abuse you, and that's pretty much it. And you have the right to find your own personal power and to claim it, and that includes boundaries. And in most cases, it includes rigid boundaries, rigid distance. And no, you're not cruel for setting those boundaries. They've been cruel to you. That's why you set your boundaries. But of course, these parents are now going to be like acting like they're your victims, the victims of your cruelty for setting boundaries or not wanting them in your life because you're cruel and also too sensitive. Can you be cruel and too sensitive? I don't know, really. It's just whatever is convenient to them. So all of these things to say that I don't think you should be trying to get the validation that you are so hungry for from your parents, and to actually commit yourself to continue to validate your own story through your own processes and finding books and people who talk about the same thing and validate your story. Because although your story was unique and your past was unique, the pain points are universal. It is no coincidence that everybody now is showing up, sharing their childhood. It looks like they're talking about your childhood. It feels like they were raised in your own home. It feels like they were just next to you when you were going through the things that they went through. So it's a universal struggle, although in a different scenario for each one of us. And also it differently manifests in our lives, right? Coming out of these environments, these toxic narcissistic environments that teach us that the one that is more powerful has an authority over the others. So instead of the most powerful protecting us, the most powerful becomes our almost predator, right? Our worst enemy. We should be afraid of the powerful because the powerful is going to use their power against us. Instead of thinking, oh, they're the most powerful, it means they're going to keep us safe. No. They're the most powerful. They're going to abuse their power against us unless we obey. And that is very aligned within the patriarchal system that we are sort of like, we are being entrained on how to participate from just having childhoods with people that are training us to that by how they're treating us. But we have all of these similar wounds, but different ways of expressing it. Some of us will come out of these households being codependent. Others will have people-pleasing tendencies. Others will be perfectionists. Others will struggle with addiction. Others will struggle with all sorts of stuff. Others will come out of childhoods like that, where they were super emotionally neglected and attached to a fantasy parent because the real parent was too scary, will come out and live eternally in limerence, have one limerent episode after the next and never truly be able to go towards closeness because it is very scary because of what happened to them, right? So all of these things can be ways that we can adapt and cope with what happened to us, but we've all had the same thing happen to us in a way. That indoctrination, being exposed to somebody powerful that wasn't using their power to protect us, but rather to condition us into obedience. And so there's a lot of things that happened there, but most importantly, the way it damaged our sense of worth is the main reason why we now struggle in so many areas of our lives. And this is what I keep teaching here, why I teach the topics that I teach, because we are, we're talking about the same thing and just in its different expressions. And in the same way, how women in these households end up being so prepped for what patriarchy expects from them too, right? But if we are raised in environments that don't cultivate our sense of worth, then we become members of a society that has us chasing our worth through other means. And that is great for society, but very bad for us. It's great for a society that just wants pawns, right? But anyway, I digress. The validation that you seek is in you, is in every time you can witness your story. And instead of telling the younger you that, yeah, whatever, come on, it wasn't that bad, you validate their story. And I wish that you get to a place where you no longer need anybody to understand what happened to you, because now you are the one that judges what things were like for you, how you feel about them, and what you want to do about them. You do not have to convince anyone to agree with your version of events, because it is your personal story, right? And so people will have an opinion about why you've estranged yourself, or why you did this, or why you did the other. You don't have to convince anyone for your suffering. If you feel like what happened to you was significant enough for you to draw lines in whatever capacity that you want to draw them in, follow that. Protect yourself. Take care of yourself. Validate your story. The last thing that you need is, as you're doing this meaningful and deep work, to allow them to instill themselves back in your experience and tell you what you're supposed to think and feel about what it is that they're doing. Because this time you're reclaiming that inner space. You're reclaiming the inner space inside of you that says, I get to decide what I feel about things. I get to decide how I'm perceiving things and how they are affecting me. I get to observe that, and I get to validate that, and you don't need to tell me. Like, if you're cold, nobody gets to tell you, it's not cold, I'm cold. We're not going to have the conversation of why, I'm cold. So it's hot. It's not hot, it's hot for me. That's fine. Same way, right? With that certainty of, it wasn't that bad, it was bad enough for me. Oh, come on, no, right? And coming back to that over and over and over again means that you don't share or try to get validation from anyone that is committed to getting you to explain why you feel the way you feel because of what was done to you. You don't need to explain. If anybody needs to explain themselves, these are the people that harmed you. They need to explain themselves of why they thought that their little child deserved such treatment. Oh, come on, you're being too... Yeah, no, I'm not being too much. Why did they think that a little child deserved such treatment? And also on top of that treatment, they deserve so much invalidation about the mistreatment. So they didn't even deserve to be validated, that they were abused whilst they were abused. And now they're growing up and they have to convince everybody that they actually were abused, but nobody's there to say, well, yeah, I see it, I hear you. And now what? What do they do with so much chronic invalidation? And what are they then susceptible to? If they invalidate themselves, anybody can just tell them whatever they want. They can guide them to live lives based on the narration of others and the explanation of others, and not really on what they feel. They turn off their intuition, they stop listening themselves, they stop validating themselves, they're pursuing external validation. And so they're trapped in a world where they have to continue to chase others' opinions about things, which means they can never freely decide. And they will always feel so much anger and frustration that they don't know where to put, and they're going to put it back into themselves and hate themselves. So invalidated, frustrated, self-hating, self-destructive, no more. And the sad part is, through this sequence of events, then they destroy their lives so much that the parents will be like, I saw it. That's why, oh, you were such a hard kid. Ugh, you were always like that. No. They have a massive play and a part in who you became. I was recently talking to this person that I found on the street, a random conversation. She kept telling me about her son and this and that. Oh, he's so toxic. He's so narcissistic. And I'm thinking to myself, you are his mother. He wasn't just born so entitled, right? So I asked a couple of questions in the sense like, I don't know, I don't remember the conversation. And it was pretty obvious that she wasn't willing to see any of that. But, kids are our creation in the sense that, we raise them. So a lot of how they're acting is reflecting what we taught them. It's natural. If you have a child and it speaks your language and it knows your mannerisms and it likes the same type of foods that you do, and that's normal because you raise them, but then they do anything else? It's like, no, I don't understand this child. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't understand this child? They're like, no, it's not me, it's them. They're just weird. Are they weird? Really? Tell me more about how weird they are. And that is confronting to hear if you're a parent, but if it's at least somehow bothering you, it is great to think as a parent why it happens, but also it's most importantly for me that you guys think about this in terms of yourselves first. I said that I try to always remind people when they hear things about childhood and parents and aftermath to not go straight into, if they're parents, to, oh, what did I do to my child? Because that guilt is going to be too much to handle at first. First, you have to validate yourself as a daughter or a son before you move on to see it externally and how it happened and it sort of manifested to your own kids. But denying it all and be like, no, my kids, I don't know why they are the way they are. Really? I could tell you, we can have a conversation. I can tell you very quickly as to why they are. But most people don't want to hear that because, of course, that they don't want that responsibility. Not that we're not then adults responsible for ourselves, right? There's a difference between seeing why things happen, and there's a difference between what are we going to do with them now. Parents have participated into raising you, which makes a lot of sense that whoever you become is a byproduct of how they raised you. Even if they tried to make you someone different, possibly the fact that they were trying so much to make you someone, whoever they wanted and envisioned you to be, has resulted to the exact opposite thing. So even if you're failing in life, and they kind of predicted that because they were trying to get you to be someone else, they programmed you for that failing. And I have a video that your parents didn't predict your life. They programmed you to fail. Watch it. We talk a lot about that. Anyway, so yeah, these are some of my thoughts about validation and seeking validation. And if you're going to be seeking it, seek it from yourself. That's what you truly need. An unshakable belief in you about what you are going through. reclamation of your inner space as yours. I'll see you guys.